And joining us today in our book talk segment, great to welcome one who's written a book that is going to help people with conflict resolution. It's called Everything is Workable, a Zen approach to conflict resolution. We're joined today by Diane Musho Hamilton on the telephone. Diane, good to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have a chance to chat with you for a couple of minutes. Had an opportunity to read through the book, and I guess you're touching on something that probably most people are not very, at least they're definitely not comfortable with it, but probably not very good at it either, dealing with conflicts in life, right?
Yeah, well, the sensations in our body, our bodies are designed for self-defense. So anytime we feel threatened, whether we feel threatened physically or emotionally or in relationship to our position, our self-image, the sensations of conflict are just not easy ones. I sometimes say it's like listening to a crying baby on an airplane. Everything in your body is designed to get that to stop.
You almost wonder why we're not better at it, even in today's society where, I guess, you have so many ways to communicate, but we're not communicating face-to-face as much. I don't know if that's part of it, but why are we so bad at this?
Well, I think that it feels bad. I would say that some part of us is good, in the sense that human beings are so cooperative compared to ants and bees. We're one of the most cooperative. If you just look at everything humans have done together. Mm-hmm. But we just have old habits, and as you know, old habits die hard. So it's the old habits, and it's the learning new ways and getting enough reinforcement that new approaches will make a difference and will actually free us up a little bit. I think we have to have the confidence that a new approach to conflict will work, and most of us haven't really had that experience.
You really never taught that, maybe at home, if your parents, maybe they teach you that, but you never taught anything like that in school, so that might be nice something to add to the curriculum.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about when you say Zen approach, and that's kind of a term I think a lot of people hear, but maybe they're not quite clear what that means.
Mostly if I say, what does Zen mean to you, people say, well, it's a feeling of peace or a feeling of well-being or, things are okay as they are. And I think that's right. And what I'm trying to stress is that, I teach a little bit of how to meditate in the book, but I also say to people that everyone has a way of really relaxing, calming down, quieting all that, that mind chatter, that discursive talk, that kind of ongoing activity in the mind, and that when we really can learn how to quiet the mind, it's a little bit like working out. We get better at it, and then our entire nervous system can calm down, and then we just see things much more clearly. We're able to take bigger points of view or different points of view, and we're more creative.
It's difficult to resolve an argument or a conflict when you yourself are agitated. I know it's tough sometimes not to be, but I guess that's the goal, right?
Yeah, and it's I don't mean for people to think that you have to be like totally, smoothed over. It's okay to get your feathers ruffled. It's okay to get your back up, so to speak. But the question is, how quickly do you recover? And can you hang in there so that it can be productive as opposed to just then it becomes a really alienating event?
I know you talk in the book about different conflict styles and the three poisons. Can you explain that briefly?
Well, there are three general categories for how we respond to conflict. So the first is avoidance, and that means that we just kind of stay away from it, and that's a really smart thing to do. It's only a problem if you do it all the time, because if you do it all the time, then you risk becoming kind of depressed because you don't stand up for yourself, or you can feel not very connected to your coworkers, or sometimes you can find that people stop looking to you for answers because they don't think that you're going to actually show up. So there's a negative downside to being too avoidant. And then the other is that the accommodating style is the person who feels like that they're always willing to be a little bit bigger, make a little bit of a gesture, offer something. But over time, if you accommodate too often, you also can be in danger of some of the same things that an avoidant person is in danger of, most importantly, becoming a doormat, if you will. Mm. And then finally, there's the fighting style or the aggressive style, and that belongs to those of us who, when we feel threatened, we're just ready to go at it. And again, there's nothing wrong with some strong advocacy or opposition, but if we do it habitually, other people often become afraid of us, or they won't tell us the truth because they think they're going to have to deal with our temper. So my point is that each of these conflict styles can be skillful if it's used in the right moment. And anytime we're just limited to one style, we've got ourselves backed into a corner.
How do you deal with, you mentioned the aggressive style? Some people are just very good at at arguing, and they're kind of loud and keep going. How do you kind of combat that if you're not that type of, that's not your personality?
Yeah, if that's not your personality, what I would suggest to people, and it takes a little, you have to pick up a little of that yourself, but just to simply say to someone, I know you feel strongly, or you have a big personality, or, you have a lot of energy about this, but I think I could listen to you a little bit better if I didn't feel so dominated.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kind of a reflective statement back.
Yeah,
repeating what they say, right?
I know what you have to say, but not if you're lording it over me like this.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that may be kind of shy or quiet feel that way when they're in any kind of conflict, and the other person's that way. They don't really know how to respond, and like you said, you withdraw if you're not sure how to handle that. So
I recommend that a person who is milder, practice picking up some aggression and using some energy once in a while and just seeing what that's like. Take that risk, but certainly draw a boundary and see what that feels like just to draw a boundary. If you're more of an aggressive style, you need to drop back and actually learn how to kind of drop your point of view and do some listening, right? And if you're accommodating, you might want to advocate for yourself. You might want to say, look, this is how I feel about it. So it's all about practicing what it is we don't do naturally.
You talk also in the book about conflict and creativity. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Mostly when people relate with conflict, we tend to get into a survival mode, and so we don't get very creative. So what I'm trying to suggest is that if we hang in there and we really start to listen to the other side, or we start to listen to other perspectives, that we're in a much better position to generate more creative options. And I give an example in the book of a dispute between my daughter and my husband, where she had a birthday party on a weekend, and he had an opening for his business, and they sat down together finally after being mad at each other and came up with some options, and it turned into a family call that we have now every Sunday. So there's all kinds of creativity that gets born, but it takes being willing to do something different.
Work in the court system, right? Is that still accurate out in Utah?
Yes,
with the conflicts?
I did. I was the director of dispute resolution for the Utah State Court System.
How is that when you have to put it to use in the courts? It comes in handy, I imagine, but difficult to deal with, different type of personalities.
Well, it's the same thing. People end up in lawsuits because they haven't found a creative way to deal with the solution. So the challenge once you're in the court system is then you have to engage the lawyers in being creative, and that's a lot harder. Because my job when I was at the courts was really to teach people how to use conflict resolution skills and mediation prior to something becoming a lawsuit. Because once you've entered the court system, it gets defined by all the legal questions, where if it's just your dispute with your neighbor, you can work it out in all kinds of different ways that aren't possible once it's introduced into the court.
Yeah, then there's more rules you have to follow.
Exactly.
Well, the name of the book is called Everything is Workable, a Zen Approach to Conflict Resolution. We're talking with Diane Musho Hamilton today. And Diane, give out a website. People can get a hold of you or the book.
Yes, my website is Diane Musho Hamilton. That's one word. .com, and you can certainly purchase the book there, but you can also go to Amazon.com or to the publisher in Boston, Shambhala.com.
Great. Diane, appreciate you taking a few minutes today, and good advice in the book, and we'll look forward to talking to you again sometime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.